The global media fixates on kinetic events. State reports confirm North Korea is launching serial production of next-generation guided missiles. Ukrainian drones execute strikes on Russian territory. Netanyahu warns that if Iran escalates, all bets are off. This is the visible spectrum of conflict, a deliberate and calculated distraction. The lethal vector is not the missile. The true strategic threat is systemic and silent. It does not announce itself with an explosion. It is defined by an absence of signal. The objective is not to win a battle. It is to induce a global solvency crisis by severing the central nervous system of finance and military command. Analysts at RUSI and CSIS have mapped this vulnerability for over a decade. The entire operational and economic framework of the West is dependent on a finite number of subsea data corridors and orbital satellite constellations. These are not military targets. They are civilization-level liabilities. This protocol creates the blind Leviathan, a superpower possessing unmatched kinetic force rendered inert. Its carrier groups are adrift. Its hypersonic assets have no targets. Its markets cannot clear trades. When a nation's primary advantage, its conventional superiority, becomes a stranded asset, the strategic equation is broken. This is not a war you can win. It's a balance sheet you can't escape. The central motive is not aggression. It is solvency. A state's kinetic power has a balance sheet. When the cost of projecting conventional force exceeds the political and financial capital required to sustain it, that state is functionally insolvent. It can no longer win. Its military superiority becomes a domestic liability, a vector for economic collapse and political unrest. This is the solvency trap. The mechanism is not a choice. It is a mathematical certainty. Examine the Russian Federation. The initial kinetic assault failed its strategic objectives. According to CSIS analysis, the conflict has devolved into a severe domestic liability, an unpopular war draining the Kremlin's treasury and political stability. The evidence is clear. The war is no longer about a decisive victory. It is now a solvency crisis. As confirmed by public reports, Ukrainian drone strikes now occur inside Russian territory, with fatalities registered. This demonstrates a systemic failure of conventional defense. This failure forces a pivot. When symmetric warfare guarantees bankruptcy, the only rational move is to change the rules of engagement. You pivot to asymmetry. The objective shifts from defeating their military to collapsing their will. The strategy is to inflict 1,000 small cuts, each one a low-cost, high-impact political wound. A single drone costing thousands can disrupt infrastructure worth billions and erode public morale. Conventional weakness is the direct accelerant for asymmetric leverage. This is not an isolated event. It is a global blueprint for strategic defiance. North Korea's launch of serial production for next-generation guided missiles is not about winning a land war. It is about making any potential intervention catastrophically expensive. States observe headlines about U.S. military action or warnings between actors like Israel and Iran, and they draw a singular conclusion. Conventional defense is futile. The only path to leverage is to create an asymmetric threat matrix so dense that a superpower cannot afford the cost of winning. Weakness itself becomes the weapon. The central pillar of modern conflict is no longer territory or ideology. It is the cost per kill. According to analysis from institutions like the Royal United Services Institute, or RUSI, the new battlefield equation is a mathematical certainty. A $5 million main battle tank can be operationally neutralized by a $500 FPV drone. This is not a balanced exchange. It is a systemic solvency crisis designed to bankrupt a superpower, not defeat it on the field. This economic inversion is termed the democratization of violence. The capacity for high-leverage kinetic impact is no longer a monopoly of states with trillion-dollar budgets. It is being mass-produced. We have confirmation that actors like North Korea have launched serial production of next-generation guided missiles. This is not a prototype in a lab. It is the industrial-scale manufacturing of an economic weapon designed to bleed a superior adversary through 1,000 cuts. The result is a strategic liability. A superior military becomes a target-rich environment. Every deployed asset represents an unacceptable financial risk against a disposable threat. As confirmed in current conflicts, Ukrainian drone strikes demonstrate this principle in real time, inflicting attritional losses inside Russian territory. When conventional superiority becomes a financial trap and the attritional losses become politically unsustainable, leaders warn that all bets are off. The escalation vector becomes the only remaining path to a decision. This isn't a failure of strategy. It is the calculated outcome of a new economic physics in warfare. The global chessboard is being deliberately fractured. These are not isolated conflicts, they are proxy laboratories. We see Ukrainian drones executing kinetic strikes inside Russia, a direct test of a superpower's pain threshold. Simultaneously, state actors like North Korea initiate mass production of next-generation guided missiles. This isn't coincidence. It is the industrial-scale proliferation of the tools required for a global, low-cost attritional campaign. The blueprint is now open source. The primary vector for this new doctrine is regional instability. Security analysts at CSIS are no longer focused solely on traditional war zones. They now monitor systemic fragility in Western-aligned nations. Official travel warnings for regions from South Africa to Canada are viewed not as isolated civil matters, but as indicators of potential gray zones, logistical hubs for staging asymmetric financial and kinetic attacks. Unverified social media chatter regarding preemptive U.S. operations in Venezuela illustrates the hair-trigger sensitivity to these perceived threats. Each proxy laboratory serves a single function: to calculate the solvency point of a conventional power. Every drone, every missile, is a line item against a superpower's economic and political balance sheet. The strategic objective is not to win, but to make the cost of maintaining order a systemic liability. This forces a mathematical certainty. When confronted with an unwinnable war of 1,000 cuts, state-level warnings, like Netanyahu's "all bets are off" declaration, confirm the new protocol. Nonlinear escalation ceases to be a deterrent of last resort. It becomes the only logical response to an engineered solvency crisis. The launch-on-warning protocol is a relic of Cold War mathematics. It is not a strategy. It is a systemic kill switch. The doctrine mandates a full-scale nuclear retaliation the instant early warning systems detect an inbound missile launch. The launch order is given before the enemy warheads can impact, ensuring a retaliatory strike cannot be prevented by a decapitation attack on command infrastructure. The entire architecture is predicated on the absolute integrity of satellite and radar data. This protocol now faces a solvency crisis. The proliferation of low-cost, high-precision weapons, such as the guided missiles now entering mass production in North Korea, demonstrates a global trend. According to analysts at CSIS, the digital vectors used to guide drones in strikes against Russian territory are functionally identical to those that could be used to compromise an adversary's command, control, and communications network. The data feed is no longer sacrosanct. It is a target. This creates the fog of digital war. If a cyber attack blinds the early warning radar, the commander is trapped. Is it a system malfunction, or is it the first move in a coordinated strike designed to paralyze the response? The protocol offers no room for debate. The absence of data is interpreted as the worst-case scenario. The mathematical choice is to launch based on the last valid signal, or risk total asset liquidation by waiting for a confirmation that may never come. When faced with attritional asymmetric losses and escalatory warnings that all bets are off, a superpower perceives this digital ambiguity as an existential threat. The fear is not of the glitch. It is that a weaker actor has found a low kinetic cost method to trigger the superpower's own doomsday machine. The commander is not launching out of aggression, but out of fear that the system is being deliberately corrupted to force his hand. The launch becomes a tragically logical escape from an unwinnable state of digital paralysis. The tactical application of asymmetric weapons, as demonstrated by Ukrainian drone strikes in Russia and North Korea's mass production of guided missiles, is a solved problem. The next phase is strategic. We are entering the era of the calibration shot, a low-cost, high-impact event engineered for plausible deniability to test a superpower's response protocol. The objective is not kinetic destruction, but systemic paralysis, inducing a solvency crisis. CSS modeling confirms that a 72-hour shutdown of a Tier 1 container port creates economic disruption equivalent to a strategic bombing campaign, but with zero kinetic cost and, crucially, no attributable actor. This is the blueprint. Within the next 12 months, expect a coordinated GPS spoofing and localized EMP event targeting the digital logistics and crane automation network of a primary Western shipping hub. It will be blamed on solar flares or a catastrophic software update. The financial damage will be severe, the attribution impossible. This is not the attack. It is a market test of American political will.